at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Wednesday, January 29th. As always, I am Dean Obeidallah, hoping to be your MBFF. I'm there. Don't have a Muslim friend. I'm the guy for you there. On Twitter at Dean Obeidallah, Dean at deanofradio.com. So today was a big day. Today are these questions, and we'll talk about it. And I'll tell you, this was so much more compelling than so much of the opening statements, at least to me. We'll play some of the best clips, talk about what's going on. But I'm telling you, the Republicans have a clear choice. Vote for witnesses, meaning you choose the Constitution. Vote for no for witnesses, meaning you've chosen Donald Trump over the Constitution. It's really that simple. And that's not even hyperbolic. That's literally what's going on. But before we get into what happened today, Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani's associate, Lev Parnas, who's under indictment, showed up at the Capitol today and was going to go sit up in the gallery. Godfather 2 type stuff, sitting up there staring down. Apparently because of his ankle bracelet, because he's out on bail. He couldn't get through the metal detector. I'm not kidding. But he was there. And in the halls of the Capitol, he made a statement about the witnesses he wants to see, including himself. And this is, I wish the Democrats would make this argument as well. Here is clip number 1, Lev Parnas today. Clip number 1? No clip number 1.
Mr. Parnas, John Bolton's reporting is being proven to be a bombshell. Is what you have to offer to this trial, is that going to be equally telling as well?
Absolutely.
How so?
I want to testify under oath, so this way the truth, so this way we don't have to do this in the media. I think I said a lot, and I think a lot has been proven by my evidence that I've turned over to the House. So the next thing is I'd love to do it under oath, and I welcome all of them. I welcome Rudy to come and testify under oath. I welcome the President to come testify under oath. I welcome Pompeo to come testify under oath, and definitely Attorney Bill Barr.
And Bill Barr. Let them all. I'd like to see them all testify under oath. I could not agree with you more, my friends. And that's what I wish the Democrats are making the case over and over and over. Lev Parnas is an important person. He's got direct information of what went on. He was sent by Rudy Giuliani on behalf of the president. He sat down with the president. They know each other. And he went over there and told the Ukrainians directly, if you don't do what Trump wants in terms of investigations, you're not getting aid, you're not getting a meeting, you're destroying the whole relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine. Republicans don't want to hear from him. Then we found out more today. New information. Eliot Engel, the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, said today, on September 23rd, a short time after John Bolton, the man of the hour, resigned, or got fired, depending on how you look at it, he had a phone call with John Bolton, who told him, quote, Ambassador Bolton suggested to me, unprompted, that the committee look into the recall of Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch, adding he strongly implied that something improper had occurred around her removal as our top diplomat in Kiev. Why would you want to hear? This is even more why you want to hear from Bolton, right? So today, if you weren't watching because you're busy, I'll just tell you procedurally how it broke down today. It's unlike anything we've seen. It looks more like a law school moot court. Reminds me of that on some level. Or if you did an appellate argument, but more people might know, like just sitting, one person goes up and talks and sits down, another person from the other side comes up and talks. But how it really works procedurally is today for 8 hours and tomorrow for 8 hours. It's allocated. It does not have to be used, but beginning at 1 o'clock today till 9 o'clock, they can go. And tomorrow, the same thing. It's questions by the senators. But the wrinkle in this is they don't ask the questions directly. They write it down on a card. They get recognized by the Chief Justice, who goes, yes, and they go, Senator Susan Collins, whoever it is, I've got a question on behalf of me and this person, that person. Then they hand the card to a person who walks it up to John Roberts, and then he looks at it like it's the Academy Awards of questions, and you go, what kind of questions is going to be? Who's this going to be for? And then The way it goes is they say this question's for the House managers or for Trump's lawyers, and John Roberts is supposed to alternate. As long as there's still questions, he'll alternate between one Democratic question, one Republican question. They're supposed to keep their answers about 5 minutes each. Some are going a little longer, many going much shorter. That's where we are. Now, it's been since 1 o'clock. I've watched hours of this. I found this really compelling. There was a few patterns and themes that came up a lot. Clearly, on behalf of the House managers, the theme was make a case to have witnesses, especially John Bolton. In fact, Adam Schiff, he was the first question asked went to him, and he got up and made the case specifically about why you need witnesses. Here's clip number 2, please, Adam Schiff today.
Chief Justice, the short answer to that question is no. There's no way to have a fair trial without witnesses. And when you have a witness who is as plainly relevant as John Bolton, who goes to the heart of the most serious and egregious of the president's misconduct, who has volunteered to come and testify, to turn him away, to look the other way, I think is deeply at odds with being an impartial juror. I would also add in response to the last question that if any part of the president's motivation was a corrupt motive, if it was a causal factor in the action to freeze the aid or withhold the meeting, that is enough to convict. It would be enough to convict under criminal law. But here there's no question about the president's motivation. And if you have any question about the president's motivation, it makes it all the more essential to call the man who spoke directly with the president, that the president confided in and said he was holding up this aid because he wanted Ukraine to conduct these political investigations that would help him in the next election.
And what you heard in response from Trump's lawyers over and over was mirroring Donald Trump's tweets today. No witnesses. And their argument for no witnesses is it's going to take months, literally. Lawyer after lawyer on Trump's side. This will take months if you have witnesses. So then one of the Democratic senators wrote a question, and that was actually providing information while asking a question, asked, isn't it true that depositions of 3 witnesses in the Clinton trial were completed in only 1 day each? And of course, the answer is yes, exactly. That's what happened. We're talking here 1 witness, 2 witnesses. You're talking extending this for 1 to 2 days. That's all you're talking about. That's all it is. And then Hakeem Jeffries, another House manager, got up to address the question about witnesses. Witnesses. And the history of witnesses. And do you want to know, out of all the impeachment trials there has been in the Senate, there's been 19 people prior to Trump where they had impeachment trials in the Senate. Of those 19, those are judges, a cabinet official, a Supreme Court justice, 2 presidents. Want to know out of the 19 how many called witnesses? All 19. Every one had witnesses. And here's Hakeem Jeffries making that very point. Let's hear clip number 3.
The Senate in its history has had 15 different impeachment trials. In every single trial, there were witnesses. Every single trial. Why should this president be treated differently, held to a lower standard at this moment of presidential accountability? And in fact, in many of those trials, there were witnesses who testified in the Senate who had not testified in the House.
And that's absolutely true. In the 2 presidential impeachment trials, Andrew Johnson, 41 witnesses called. Nearly 35 of those witnesses had never testified in the House. They called nearly 35 new witnesses in the Senate. Bill Clinton, after a 4-year investigation by Kenneth Starr, literally 4 years, they still called 3 brand new witnesses in his trial, including Monica Lewinsky. And that's because Lindsey Graham and the Republican House manager at the time wanted them. And the Democrats went along. And they gave them 3 witnesses because it's a trial, not a cover-up. And I keep making the point over and over. Bill Clinton testified voluntarily in that investigation with Kenneth Starr. Donald Trump should be forced to testify or answer the American public why he's not testifying. Because there was a poll last week. 3 out of 4 Americans, 75%, said that Trump cabinet officials, including Trump, should testify. America wants to know the truth. It doesn't mean everyone who wants a witness wants Trump removed. Of course, that's not true. but they understand what a trial is. Judge Judy has witnesses. Divorce court on TV. Hot Bench. The show Hot Bench has juries. It has witnesses. There was a show on Animal Planet called Judge Wapner's Animal Court. They had witnesses in an animal court. They had animals and witnesses. This is the biggest trial in the history of the country in modern day. It's of the President of the United States. Republicans, no witnesses. Over and over again, it's going to take too long. It's going to waste time. Here's another thing that they're not talking about. There's actually one of the standing rules for the Senate trial. It's Senate Rule 11. Provides that the trial in any trial that goes on in the Senate, they can appoint a committee of senators, quote, to receive evidence and take testimony at such times and place the committee may determine, close quotes. And from there, the committee then reports all the evidence to the full Senate. So you don't have to hold up the entire Senate. So say on some, they go, we're going to have 6 people. They don't have to do all 6. They don't do the testimony here. They do it where it's assigned to a few senators or lawyers will go. Some of the senators will go and watch, like Monica Lewinsky, and the lawyers will go and they come back and report it to the full Senate. It's not like and the other thing is, it's not like the Senate's doing any work. All they're doing is confirming judges for Trump and becoming a graveyard for every good House bill that passes, such as universal background checks for guns, the Equality Act. They won't even take up reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act in this Senate, even though the House passed it. So stop your work. You're doing nothing. You can confirm judges in the morning. This doesn't start till 1 o'clock. So it's all a charade. It's unbelievable. And then in this farcical show trial that Joseph Stalin would be proud of, Alan Dershowitz goes up today and makes an argument that was just simply stunning. It was both laughable as much as it was dangerous. And let's play Alan Dershowitz arguing today on his view of impeachment. And it's not the arguments made before. This is a new one. This is way out there. This is something that no lawyer would buy into this. I don't know who bought into this. I don't think anyone, but it's making headlines because it's just ridiculous. Here's clip number 4, please.
Every public official that I know believes that his election is in the public interest. And mostly you're right. Your election is in the public interest. And if a president does something which he believes will help him get elected in the public interest, that cannot be the kind of quid pro quo that results in impeachment. Every president believes that. That's why it's so dangerous to try to psychoanalyze a president, to try to get into the intricacies of the human mind. Everybody has mixed motives. And for there to be a constitutional impeachment based on mixed motives would permit almost any president to be impeached.
What he was saying is his whole thing, and I cut a little of the middle because it just went way afield, but the first part and the last part are the essence, the legal argument. The first part is it's in the national interest of the country for the president running for re-election. And everyone running for re-election believes it's in the national interest they get reelected. So hence, anything the president does in his re-election efforts are per se in the national interest. So maybe 2% might be a bad interest, but 98% or 50%, whatever percent, some part of it is in the national interest. So he's literally arguing that if a president's running for re-election, and since he has deemed it in the national interest, Alan Dershowitz, the president can do anything. Because they go, well, it's in the national interest, me getting reelected. When in reality, it is the most personal thing when you're running for reelection. It's not in the national interest, it's in your personal interest. And then Adam Schiff gets up there. I'll just play 30 seconds of his response because he was just dumbfounded. Here's clip number 5.
Bear in mind that efforts to cheat an election are always going to be in proximity to an election. And if you say you can't hold a president accountable in an election year where they're trying to cheat in that election, then you are giving them carte blanche. So all quid pros are not the same. Some are legitimate and some are corrupt, and you don't need to be a mind reader to figure out which is which. For one thing, you can ask John Bolton.
And you heard that theme a lot. House managers coming back going, why do you ask John Bolton? Now, quid pro quo we've gone through is just something for something. If a president withholds aid to a country for a national interest, something of concern to our nation, and says, if you do not do this, whatever it might be, and the example of Dershowitz is that giving aid to Israel and saying, he made an example, if you don't stop settlement construction, we're not giving you any more aid. That's in the national interest. You can debate that policy. It's up to you. But certainly not in the president's interest. It's in the national interest. You've got Dershowitz going further, going, anything the president says is in the national interest. This is like Nixon. Anything the president does is fine because the president does it. It is so dangerous of an argument, and no one's buying it. But, you know, some of these arguments, they start getting a life of their own. Like the idea, D.C. versus Heller, the famous Supreme Court case which says you have a Second Amendment personal right to have a gun. That's not in the Second Amendment. We all know it doesn't say it. It says militia. But for 20 years, conservatives in their think tanks and at their seminars and their candidates were arguing, you have a personal right to have a gun. And at 20 years later, literally 20 years later, Supreme Court, conservative, the compositions there of these people who came up with that mindset, and lo and behold, they find it. You can do personal right to a gun and it can't be restricted, except for a few things that are not unreasonable restrictions. You've got this with this craziness. So, and then Adam Schiff had a really good response here to the nonstop call on the right that we're trying to overturn the election by doing this. And you can't overturn an election. This is not even close to overturning an election. But here, let's jump down to clip number 11, please, Nina, for this one.
Now, the argument, well, if you impeach a president, you are overturning the results of the last election and you're tearing up the ballots in the next election. Okay, if that were the case, there would be no impeachment clause in the Constitution. Because by definition, if you're impeaching a president, that president is in office, has won an election. Clearly, that's not what the founders had in mind. What they had in mind is if the president commits high crimes and misdemeanors, you must remove him from office. It is not voiding the last election. It is protecting the next election. Indeed, the impeachment power was put in the Constitution not as a punishment. That's what the criminal laws are for, but to protect the country. Now, if you say you can't impeach a president before the next election, what you're really saying is you can only impeach a president in their second term. Okay, if that were going to be the constitutional requirement, the founders would have put in the Constitution, a president may commit whatever high crimes and misdemeanors that he wants as long as it's in the first term. That is clearly not what any rational framer would have written.
And absolutely true. And it's not overturning the election means either Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama are back. Obama's president again or Hillary Clinton's president. Removing Donald Trump just means Mike Pence is president. This is the structure the framers gave us. If you don't like the structure, work hard to amend the Constitution. Change it so that if a Republican president gets in, they can commit all the crimes they want. It's a free-for-all. It's Club Med for crimes. Donald Trump, he's already doing that anyway, Trump. But at least we have some semblance of accountability. Just want to play a couple more clips leading to something that's troubling, very troubling. And then I want to get your reaction because here is Zoe Lofgren, one of the House managers, I think doing a good job countering this argument from the right that Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, felt no pressure at all. Come on, here's clip number 6.
Claimed that Mr. Zelensky and other Ukrainians said they never felt pressure to open investigations. Now, of course, they didn't say that publicly. They were afraid of the Russians finding out. But Zelensky said privately that he didn't want to be involved in U.S. domestic politics. He resisted announcing the investigations. He only relented and scheduled the CNN meeting after it became clear that he was not going to receive the support that he needed and that Congress had provided in our appropriations. That's the definition of pressure.
And then Zoe Lofgren made a point that I think is so fundamentally important. If you believe in our Constitution, if you believe in the rule of law, if you believe that people who do something bad, a crime, misconduct, should be held accountable, as opposed to being emboldened to do more acts. Donald Trump needs to be convicted and removed, because if you don't, here's what's going to happen. And here's Zoe Lofgren in a short clip. Clip number 7, please, Nina.
Getting caught doesn't mitigate the wrongdoing. The president's unrepentant, and we fear he will do it again. Now, the Independent Government Accountability Office concluded that the president violated federal law when he withheld that aid. That misconduct is still going on. All the aid has not yet been released.
So the question is, if you don't remove Donald Trump, will he do this again? And you know how Donald Trump is so brazen. He is so in your face. He didn't get one of his minions to ask the Ukrainian president, or Giuliani to ask the Ukrainian president when you got to July 25th, that phone call. He asked him. And literally the day after Mueller testifies, and in the Zelensky phone call, there's Trump trashing Mueller by name. And here's what he said to Zelensky. As you saw yesterday, this whole nonsense ended with a very poor performance by a man named Robert Mueller, an incompetent performance. So you've got Trump going, I'm free. He was incompetent. No one thought he did a good job. So let me now ask you to interfere with the next election. That's what happened. There's no game about it. And when you look at the fact, do we think Trump will do this again? Has he learned anything? Of course he'll do it again. And you know why? Because there's not a hint of remorse from this guy. I want to play you Bill Clinton. This is Bill Clinton, December 1998. Short time before the impeachment proceedings begin. He knows he's going to be impeached. He makes as a short press conference to the American people. And listen to what he says. Listen carefully to this. Is Bill Clinton, 1998.
What I want the American people to know, what I want the Congress to know, is that I am profoundly sorry for all I have done wrong in words and deeds. I never should have misled the country, the Congress, my friends, or my family. Quite simply, I gave in to my shame.
And he went on to talk about he'd accept any consequences of his actions. That's a man showing remorse. That's a person, believe him or not, it's up to you, but saying, I know I did something wrong. And it makes it more unlikely he'll do the same behavior, because he is saying, I know I did something wrong. It was a mistake, and I'm filled with shame. Compare that with Donald Trump at the exact same time, a few weeks before his impeachment, being asked about Zelensky. Here, listen to Trump. You just heard Clinton. Here's clip number 9.
My call was perfect. The president, yes, what these guys are doing, Democrats are doing to this country, is a disgrace, and it shouldn't be allowed. There should be a way of stopping it, maybe legally through the courts.
No remorse. There's a guy telling you, I thought what I did was perfect, and I'm going to commit more crimes because you can't stop me. I'm above the law. You can't indict me. You can't even knock me off Twitter. And now, because of my stranglehold over this spineless party known as the Republican Party, they won't even have witnesses, even though 75% of Americans in poll yesterday, 75% want witnesses. Only 20%, not even 25%, 20% don't want witnesses. That's it. That's a small sliver. But it doesn't matter what you want. It doesn't matter what I want. It's what Trump wants, because he runs this party. He owns this party. It is the Trump party. It's not the Republican Party. It's a party defined by white supremacy and racism, bigotry, sexism, and corruption. That's the GOP. Their leader is a criminal. And now they want to keep the evidence from the American people. And you know what? Today, Chuck Schumer told us the truth after going back to the chamber and talking to Republican senators. We're not going to get witnesses. It's pretty clear right now. Not definite. I'll play that clip later with Chuck Schumer a short time ago. It seems we only have 3 Republicans on board, not the 4th we need. They just want to make this go away. They don't care. John Bolton said, Donald Trump told me directly I'm withholding aid until they investigate the Democrats. They don't care. They don't want to know. Lev Parnas saying, Rudy and Trump sent me and I spoke to the Ukrainians. I told them. If you don't do the investigation, you're not getting a White House meeting. You're not getting aid. You're destroying our entire relationship. They don't want to know the truth. They're protecting Pompeo and Trump, Rick Perry, Mick Mulvaney. But they have chosen Donald Trump over protecting our Constitution. Could that change on Friday when the vote comes on motions? Maybe. I don't think so anymore. I thought so last night. I don't anymore. It doesn't mean the evidence will be hidden. It's going to get press coverage. We are still going to cover it. All the cable news channels, except for Fox News, are going to cover it. So the American people are going to see the truth about Donald Trump. It just because, thankfully, the GOP can only conceal the truth and only cover up this exact trial. They can't cover up what we all see. And Trump's approval ratings, again, beginning to slide. They go up and down, they ebb and flow, and they were 43% sort of as high. Now they're kind of creeping back down again. This is taking a toll. And this is going to be a big issue in the election. Not the Ukraine per se, but telling our fellow Americans, this guy, look what he did. He has no remorse. He thinks the call is perfect. What do you think he'll do the next 4 years when he doesn't have to run for re-election? What outlandish things? How will he try to personally benefit himself or his daughter Ivanka's already getting trademarks and Jared's personally benefiting and Don Jr. and their investments are making money? What will he do the next 4 years? You know, often the question in re-election campaigns for presidents is a simple one. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? In the case of Donald Trump, it's going to be, what do you think he'll do the next 4 years? And do people want to go through this for 4 more years? I honestly, the polls don't show they do. And that's where we are. So, look, do you think it matters in the big picture we're not going to get the witnesses of Bolton? Because Bolton's going to tell a story. He'll do it selling his book. I wish it was under oath. It's much more compelling. And also being under oath, it might actually move some Republicans who are true conservatives, because as much as I dislike John Bolton, they like him. He's been part and parcel of their movement for years. So let's take a break. I'd love to hear from you. 866-997-4748. We got a great show tonight. Jill Winebanks is going to join us in the third hour to chat a lot. We have a lot of time for phone calls tonight. The last few nights, not as much. I wanted to make more time. Then we have Congressman Garcia from Illinois. He's never been on before. In his first term, we're going to chat with him. He's out from outside the Chicago area. But right now, you're my guest at the top of the hour. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. I'll be right back.
Dean Obadala Show on Sirius XM Progress